Hello and welcome to yet another D2 session powered by digital, driven by data, a campaign by Medicine Man in partnership with Dockier. And today we have a galaxy of speakers, Saikat Chowdhury, Gurpinder Singh, Ashutosh Inamdar, and Sunil Nat. So let me quickly introduce our panel members today before we get into the discussions. So Saikat comes with 22 years of experience. He has worked with MCure, AstraZeneca, Danone, and currently the head of commercial excellence at Bayer. Gurpinder has got 18 years of experience in healthcare. He has earlier been with Cipla and GSK and currently with Indigene. And then we have Ashutosh Inamdar, who comes from a variety of experience, including outside Pharma with Verizon and Mahindra, as well as Gammon India, and currently he is with Lupin. Sunil Nat has 14 years of experience in digital marketing, and he has also worked outside the pharma industry, including in IT, retail, consumer, durables, healthcare, and pharmaceuticals in India and UAE. So you can look forward to a real feast of ideas, insights, experience, and opinions as we get into today's discussion. So, Ashutosh, the first question is to you. So, pharma has been considered as a laggard by some, although we just had a discussion where Pankaj Gursahani was there, says, hey, Anup, no, we are not the laggards. We had started digital in 2012 itself by taking on iPads and things like that. So, it's a different opinions for different people. So, and one of the biggest barriers to digital adoption was a lack of clarity on what KPIs to build for digital outreach and how to measure them. So that's what Salil was talking about. Do you think this still holds true? This is the question. Ashutosh.
Sure. Thanks, Anup. So first of all, thanks for inviting me to this panel discussion. I guess the objective is really deeper and in understanding the digital marketing side and effectively using to engage with the stakeholders. Now, I guess I agree with what has been said that pharma has been a laggard in digital because I have seen different sectors. Pharma is my latest probable, what I would say, affair, which I have 7 years back, which I started. But prior to that, I was working with Mahindra and Mahindra, which is a manufacturing setup. Before that, I was working with a construction company called Gammon India. But I have seen probably digital way ahead when I was a part of Mahindra and Mahindra. So I would agree that pharma has been a laggard, and it's not just me. I guess one of the McKinsey studies which have analyzed digital readiness of various sectors, not just in India but globally, actually ranked pharma as second from the bottom with a score of 27 out of 100, whereas the digital leaders had scored around 70 to 80 out of 100. And the only sector which was below pharma, you can guess it, it was government sector. So none of the corporate sectors uh, were as low as that. And although it's a road study, and probably I would say now the needle has moved since then, pharma still lacks that digital adoption when it's compared with other sectors, whether it's banking, retail, telecom, hospitality. Those are way evolved than what where pharma stands as of now. And I guess there have been reasons also. It's not like they didn't intend to be, but primarily I feel that in pharma, digital is looked with the same lens as in-person engagement. Okay, so just to explain in simple terms, probably we have moved from a physical deck of visual aid to a digitized visual aid on iPad, but it's not a digital transformation. Okay. Uh, what the way we measure effectiveness of digital engagement is still similar. We want quick successes. We associate every KPIs with either sales or cost saving, and at times we just measure KPIs without even having associated with business objectives or the best practices, I would say. Secondly, digital has always, or now not I would say always, but was considered as an add-on tactic of engagement, not a strategic move to derive competitive advantage. Uh, and that's the reason why even the KPIs, which are there to measure the performance, never evolved beyond the point. And had a limited understanding a lot of times. So digital strategy, because of this limited understanding of KPIs, was either declared as unsuccessful or ineffective as compared to personal in-person engagement. And finally, I guess the measured KPIs, again, if they were measured earlier, were mere data points, and we lacked the capability to derive insights out of it, right? But now, thankfully, with pandemic, or also like what Grupinder said, there have been some industries Lupin has been a part, may not be since 2012, but probably since 2015, 2016, where digital adoption has shot up, and the acceleration or the boost was given by the pandemic, where we have seen the needle, like just the acceleration was like from here to here, right? Uh, Another significant important point which has happened is that HCPs have started adopting digital for their knowledge upgradation. See, there was always a hesitance or resistance internally because obviously customers and HCPs are the major stakeholders with whom you engage. And given the regulatory aspects or the kind of restrictions that we have as a part of branded generics market or the pharma sector per se, uh, it is always the HCPs through which we have to begin our engagement, whether it's in person or digital. Going to patient only could be more around awareness, diagnosis, and all. Uh, and that's where I guess because HCPs started adopting, the scenarios changed a lot. Digital is now becoming an integral part of business strategy and is considered a significant channel of engagement. In fact, most of the digital strategies today even have relevant KPIs uh, on how the performance needs to be measured and how necessary actions need to be taken to drive effectiveness. Uh, Another important aspect which I want to highlight is that the digital landscape itself has evolved post COVID, right? And kind of the way we are kind of measuring successes, the way we are measuring impact of a digital engagement, that itself has evolved. Like simple, like earlier we used to probably get something like impressions, CTR, and all. Today, even we get a heat map of where the customer is focusing on, so that you can actually define subconscious strategies of brand, where in fact you are directly linking it with the brain and not just with the kind of superficial KPIs that used to exist. They were important, but now we are going a level deeper, is what I would say. And I guess uh, since I've joined Lupin for last 5 years, it's a non-negotiable thing for me and my team that every Friday we need to have every project status to be measured along with KPIs, and that has helped me because I have seen significant actions deriving out of it. And obviously, uh, this has helped us to probably be or stay ahead of the curve. And I guess to answer your question in a nutshell, yes, the things have changed and they are looking brighter going forward.
Great. It's wonderful to hear that. I think the pharma industry needs to get more people from other sectors which have successfully adapted digital, as a part of their strategy and not just as an add-on that you said. And yes, often we tend to digitize things and then call them digital. I think these fundamental differences that digital brings, the kind of transformation that it brings, like in our banking sector, we hardly go to the banks anymore, but pharma is still, relying a lot on the field force itself. I'm sure that we can add a lot of value by adapting digital and bringing out eventually a digital transformation. So Gurpinder, the next question is to you. You've been on both sides of the divide. You've been a pharma professional, worked in pharma companies, and now you're, as a consultant, you have the view from the other side. So from your current perch, can you give us some thoughts and best practices on digital work that you did for pharma and how you help them measure success?
So thank you, Anup. First of all, thank you for having me here. Well, I've been fortunate to work on many digital programs across different areas, predominantly in commercial pharma, and worked in several markets. So if I have to kind of give an example of a digital program I led a few years ago and how we measured the outcomes. So we were experimenting with with digital engagement to one of the flagship brand in an anti-infective space. The brand was focused on few specialties, and we realized that one specialty who were actually great writers of that molecule, but we weren't actively promoting due to portfolio constraints. So we launched a digital reach program and started engaging HCPs only through digital channels. So in market like India, it's hard to attribute outcomes, as many factors contribute to the prescription. While we took a route a route of marketing mix model and validate some of our assumptions with market research by executing a formative and summative assessments at the same target group. However, in various projects over the years in data-deprived markets, I've figured out several ways to arrive at indicative outcome of digital promotion. Instead of centering on lead and lag, which is predominantly being used across industries, where you talk about lead and lag, I divide metrics into three categories: input, lead, and output. So input metrics are driven by activity, like our channel data, face-to-face visit, webinar attendance, email, and so on and so forth, right? Lead are the ones which are customer focused, like CSAT, net promoter score, etc. And output is your business metric. So while most marketeers are obsessed with input metrics, which are undeniably important, right? But I believe lead metrics, which are customer focused, are the first indicator that define whether we are really adding value and being relevant to the customer. Then to measure the business outcome, here are a few methodologies I've used over the years in India and other emerging markets. So first is setting the baseline with market data. So like you have prescription by by doctor, so P by D, prescription growth, prescription share by that target group, internal sales, etc. And keep measuring if it is improving vis-a-vis the intensity of our digital activities. Then the second methodology is more on test and control variables. So it's setting the test and control environment, pick a specialty, geography, brand, SKU, or any other variable, right? And set the baseline and run engagement. And one can actually arrive at delta. Third approach that worked for us is obviously doing a formative and summative assessments through market research. So you pick an area, set a baseline, again, understand what is the current prescribing behavior, and then after 4 to 6 months, see if the behavior is changing. The other methodology that we have used to arrive at outcome is market mix modeling, bringing all the data across all activities, be it face-to-face, digital, or any other activity, and map it against the cost of channel, sales data, etc. The model is widely used in other industries, and help define the sales attribution by channel and even the ROI by channel. But the only lacks, the other side of this problem, the problem with this model is it has a high dependence of high dependence on the volume of data. Last, I guess, with now doctors becoming more digital savvy, bring in some EHR platforms in the promotional mix, right? One of the out of your overall target group, you will get a few HCPs in this pool. Though the size is going to be small, but it can help you conclude if your program is really delivering the outcome. And I think lastly, rarely one methodology alone will help you derive at the outcome, but combination of few methodologies will give you a good indicator if your channel, if your digital promotion or digital engagement are really delivering the value. But as I mentioned, right, don't just focus on outcome, as lead indicators are a great source to understand the relevancy and simplicity of our campaigns. Yeah, these are some of things. I can kind of talk about many other examples, but I guess how we have been measuring the outcomes in data deprived markets. I kind of use some of these approaches that I've mentioned at times. One or two approaches, combination of one or two at times, like using multiple to arrive at the outcome. But having said that, market like India, I guess it's very, very difficult to attribute what is really driving the business.
Great. I think that has always been a challenge. We don't know what is working or what is not working. So throw as many like our famous fixed dose combinations are there of 4 and 5 and drugs, and one of them should work. But it's wonderful to hear these insights from you. The practical ways in which you have changed the measurement ways. I think it should be really a very useful session learning for those who are watching us. Um, and after listening to Ashutosh and to you, I'm getting the idea that we should actually run a masterclass in digital adoption, having all these things that both of you talked about as a part of the training process. So Sunil, the next question is to you. You have a great advantage in your diverse portfolio of products that are both RX and OTC. Are there different metrics that one needs to have for the two portfolios? Or have you seen digital lending itself to RX as much as OTC portfolios if managed well?
Thank you, Anu, for first of all, and inviting me on this forum. And I think it's really lovely to connect to everybody here, people who work in the industry as non-digital very well. So I think I'm a digital kid. I've started my career in digital, and I think from there, worked with several industries, including in advertising, then consulting, then to the consumer companies, and then finally to pharma. Because I think everywhere the digital was adopting, I think this is one channel or industry we say that where we were lacking. And I think we really thank COVID to push all of us. And I'll go to the question, but before that, if we ask this question that why pharma company need to change, so the change is constant. We all know the consumers are changing. Now HCPs have changed, and I think it's essential for all of us to change. And that's where the digital has to be there in all pharma companies and their strategies. And I agree to all our previous Ashutosh and Gurupinda that how digital companies are looking at a particular BU doing something, and then the other BU trying to do something, and then everybody is working in silos and they don't know what to do with it. So I think digital has to be a strategy has to be created at the organization level, then broken into your I say in BUs, and then we see how we do digital. And digital is nothing beyond without data, and data is nothing without digital, right? So we need to go hand in hand in that. And I will give you one example that in pharma companies, I think everybody's now using iPad, but what are we doing with this iPad data? Are we really measuring that how much time HCP is actually discussing, spending on that particular slide? Will this data coming at the back end and telling us, okay, this HCP is interested into this kind of content? Are we then sending an email to him? Are we sending then an SMS to him, sending an infographic, sending an email, then bringing back him into our website, and then asking him to consume more data? And then ultimately, what is happening with this entire engagement? Is this really helping into our top line? The ultimate goal is doing entire digital, that how we evolve as an organization and how this can change entire organization to move forward and help into the overall business, right? So everything is happening in silos as of now. If I look at, and I worked in MSDs and even in Galtema right now, and that's where I think it's become responsibility for all of us who drive digital within the organization, that we combine everything together, put the entire data at one place, and then from there we interpret the data, that what do we want to do with this data, and then how we can utilize this entire data in terms of how this data can do better for the organization. Coming on to are we have a different measures for RX and OTX? Yes, we do have, because if you look at entire RX portfolio, we cannot digitalize entire portfolio right now, because there are a lot of dependency and legacy which we are still running, right? So we do different kind of campaigns. There are different measures. Somewhere we using digital just to complement the efforts which our medical reps are doing into the market, right? So the data they bring back from our iPad, how we can complement that and again reach out to consumer using digital. We are also experimenting with few programs where we don't have any medical rep. We are only using a digital or virtual medical rep and reaching out to doctors, right? Apart from that, companies like us who have not having a huge bandwidth in terms of our medical reps, and then we want to know that which are our doctors. So if you ask us as a company, we are dermatology focused company, so we know and cater to almost 95% of dermatologists. But we also have a PDI range, right? And close to 35,000 PDI in the industry in the country. We don't know whom we reach out, right? So that's where we are using digital interventions, again working with doc places, that which are those PDI who are showing interest to us, and then topping up with this with the physical visit by our medical reps, the people who are interested in the product, and then creating an ecosystem of entire digital and physical, so that we can create a output from the 30,000 to maybe 5,000 doctors who can give us a business, right? And I think that's true for most of the organization, everybody trying to do that. When it's come to OTC, now it's completely a consumer. So all consumer matrices which you do, so you do a brand track survey, you track all your YouTube, I say brand lift studies. Apart from that, your top line numbers give you an idea, and your entire social engagement, that how consumers are talking about you. Even if you ask today as a OTX brand, we are going high in consumer, but we use our HCP's equity even to penetrate their end consumer, because HCP has their own trust, right? People trust what they talk about. And when this is coming from doctors, that why particular therapy is perfect, right? So that's where we even using our HCPs, going to the consumer, talking to them, and then I say influencing them that why a particular therapy or a product is better. So yes, there are different matrices which are defined within the organization, and we are tracking all of them, and ultimately we putting everything together at a one place, and then deciding as an organization that how we enable this entire change management within the organization at India level as well as global level. So I'll not share the particular data, but we're doing a lot of fantastic work in India, which is even adopted by the other countries within the Galderma. So that's what is happening with us, and I think we all are evolving. I believe we all are learning in this industry, and I believe in next 2 years the things is going to change a lot, particularly in pharma, the way technology is coming, and the competition is not pharma anymore for us. If you look at the competition is coming from Google, competition is coming from Fitbit, right? A lot of other companies are getting into this. So now pharma, if you look at the industry, tying up with a lot of other vendors, tying up with, let's say, Fitbit, tying up with the Google, creating a program, a holistic program for consumer and HCP, which can drive the overall value for the organization, which can create a differentiation for them, which can create a top line for them, and which can create and establish the organization as overall thought leadership into the market.
Great. Thank you so much, Sunil, for those insights. I think for companies like yours, it is easier to be nimble because the legacy systems may be lesser, and then added to that, your OTC portfolio, makes it essential for you to have digital probably as the mainstay of your promotion. So, very, very good to see that. Hopefully, companies like yours will motivate others to look at digital more strategically, as Ashutosh was mentioning. So, Saika, this is to you. Talk to us about some of the work that pharma companies are doing outside India. Do you think that availability of data in those markets makes it easier for companies to go digital?
Thank you so much, Anu, for asking this question. Thank you very much for having me today in this discussion. It's a very interesting question, and everybody says, okay, India, we have dearth of data. Outside, we have so. I worked in different parts of Asia as well as Europe and US. So this is a critical question comes, right? So at a strategic, I will talk about the strategy and execution as well. And good to see now there is a lot of diversity I'm seeing in the industry, that like Ashutosh joined from a completely different industry, brought a completely different perspective of digital, which we adopted very late in pharma. But good to see last 2 years they have taken an escape velocity and reaching to the next orbit. Now, when it comes to our mind is about complexity of India, right? So it's any market you go, you get to see 2-3 different distributor who are operating in the markets. And if I talk about output KPI, which Gurvinder was mentioning, in India we have any company, mid-sized company, having more than 1,000 distributors, right? So, and when we get a data from outside, from a research company, it's just an extrapolated data. The data is taken for sample data and is extrapolated. So at a first point, your data goes wrong, right? So I have still great regards for those people using projection factor, but it gives the different direction. Coming to a HCP prescription, right? So I steal the prescription data that we get in India. It's somewhere I saw that those carbon copies are accumulated, and you have to really wait for a month or 2 months to get the prescription data, versus an e-prescriptions in abroad, like so gives you data in blinks, like so. And if you have to really do some changes in the next month, you can do it immediately, right? So that's how the power of data and efficiency of data. So what happens at the end of the data execution? Our rep goes and thanks to those doctors who have not prescribed for them, and don't thank to those doctors who are prescribed for them for quite long time, right? So that's been a challenge. Now we tried to do this marketing mixed model, execution model, and all. But the problem is when you use those, like, so, and I've seen that a lot of marketing mixed model are used with a similar kind of correlations, like, so the data, the correlation index are very high, and used both the data in regression, and my whole regression went in vain, right? So I really don't know that which ROI that I'll have to measure. Which where I'll have to really invest my resource versus where I'll have not to, right? So that's how it is. But when you go to a market which is more, I would say, data rich markets where you get data from a very reliable source, right? So you have a better opportunity to understand those metrics. Like, so you have better ROI, your hyper targeting impressions, your net promoter scores are all so accurate, right? So you can have better, discussions or the better strategic output that you can have. Here we have to use a lot of assumptions, presumptions, and in any sort of data, when you analyze, like, so if you use more of assumptions, it might lead to a very different directions. The problem is many times it happens, it's our data, because conventional model of pharma, we believe this, and this is something like a confirmation bias comes in your data, right? So I want to see this output, and thereby I arrange my data accordingly, right? So my market research, my data analysis, my everything comes to just substantiate the thought that I have in mind, wherein I see a complete different approach in a lot of other markets where they're absolutely zero, right? So it's a kind of zero-based thought and trying to do those analysis, and that's the reason why the data sources and the data availability, right? So it's a very, very big concern among all these countries. But good to see there are a lot of talks on data at this point of happening, and thanks to industry partners like Gurpinter, and a lot of people are coming forward and putting a lot of efforts in terms of analyzing the data from very, very, very minutely, and giving us inputs, something like what exactly I need to do, right? So the marketeer is always in a gray area, that what is my ROI of digital, right? So people are talking about digital, everybody, and good to have a digital strategy and all, but really the measuring the impact of everything, input KPIs, output KPIs, right? And creating the great correlations and investing my $100 over there where I'll get the maximum output versus where I'll have to divest. That decision's probably right. So, and industry partners, I really thankful to all of them. They're coming forward and doing that. What it coming in this particular discussion is also building a capability in-house of analytics. Your digital strategy only becomes successful when you have a great analytics team in your team. Otherwise, it all goes in vain. Data comes, you use the data in perspective, but when you take a decision, you take decisions by your gut feeling, right? So if a data analyst comes, tell a spade, and tells that, hey, probably this is where you're going wrong, right? So, and you'll have to take some measures over there, and you take that decisions, take it in perspective to make meaningful business outcome. I think they're it works. So the fundamentally answering your question, it is a good easy journey for abroad versus tough journey in India. But I have seen a lot of progress happening for, at least for last couple of years, I've been seeing a lot of progress happening. So that's from my side.
Great, good to hear that, because I think the lack of data has always been a big issue, and the data has always resided between the ears of the MR, the 2 years of the MR, and when he walks out with all the data. And there are so many companies that take a person because of that data that he has about the customers. Especially in the specialty segments, companies will not hire for their gastroenterology department to somebody who has not worked in gastroenterology in that, and sometimes in that same territory. So that he brings in, at least he says, I have 5 KOLs, 10 KOLs, and 20 big prescribers. So he comes to deliver. The ROI is very clear. If you are paying him 20% more on his existing salary, then you know that how much more business percentage is going to give on the monthly sales as well. So ROI is much easier over there. So Ashutosh, this question is to you again. How do you see Pharma developing better measurement of its marketing activities now with the availability of so many diverse data points? Do you think marketing can become more effective and bring in better ROI than before?
Thanks, Anam. Like I said, digital is becoming an integral part of business strategy, and KPIs for measuring effectiveness have evolved, and they are not just mere data points anymore. So, pharma marketing activities can definitely do better and derive higher ROI than before. But we need to consider two aspects which I believe are important. The first is there needs to be a widened definition of ROI. And second is we need well-defined KPIs. Now, see, digital as a strategy, uh, classically, and it's not just in pharma, across any sector, has a long gestation period, right? And once it starts performing, okay, the the advantage of momentum and longevity is tremendous. Then, like what you said, probably even if someone else joined the organization as a digital manager, he still has that momentum and longevity. It's not like a field force who leaves with the list of keywords, right? So this is the advantage, but for that, you need to give it enough time to uh, curate, enough time, enough investment, I would say, to become as effective as it should be. So the most important point is ROI cannot be measured in financial terms. Yes, it has to drive business. There's no doubt about it. There will be certain initiatives which can be directly linked to financial gains also. But it should not be that we make a rule that ROI has to be in the terms of revenues or cost saving. Okay. Secondly, digital ROI needs to include softer aspects like what Gurpinder also spoke about: net promoter score or brand recall, user adoption with stickiness, and which can directly then be linked to the customer engagement score again. So it's very important to take all these softer aspects and then define that holistic ROI perspective from a customer engagement score. And finally, ROI must consider a right frame to actually measure return on investment. You can't say that, okay, we have started it 2 months, where is the where is the return? So you need to consider that right frame, which generally, and you have the best practices where you can look into it. The next, coming to like once we have a proper understanding of this holistic definition of ROI, we need to focus on well-defined KPIs. Now, what do I mean by well-defined KPIs? The first and the most important part is they should be measurable, no matter what. And ideally, as far as uh, effectiveness is concerned, it's better that they are quantitative in nature, so that you can track the trends, you can understand, and it's a simple measurement technique. You don't need to then, because uh, someone saying significant engagement, it can be different for me, it can be different for you. But if I say, okay, out of 100 I engaged 80, it's same for all. So that's the reason why it's tough, but ideally we should try and define maximum KPIs which are quantitative. They need to be relevant and linked to the objective. I should not be tracking KPI because everyone is saying, okay, for social media, these are the best KPIs, or for website, these are the best KPIs. No, it has to be linked to your objective. Like today, if I have one of the uh, probable initiative which I have launched for, say, a patient health outcome, I need to really focus on how many patients are onboarded, how many patient health is improved. It can't simply be, okay, there were 1 lakh impressions of the web page. Okay, so what? But if it's not converted into patient health outcome, I then think that, okay, we are just measuring data points. The third is there should be ideal frequency for measuring these KPIs to derive insights out of for driving effectiveness. I can't say that, okay, I've just launched it, let me check after 8 months, right? There needs to be some frequency with which I continuously keep on tracking them and derive actionable insights out of it. And finally, I guess we need to focus on customer and user experience, because that's probably something which is very important when it comes to digital landscape. And then obviously, once you have the ROI and KPIs defined, you need a strong digital culture within the organization to drive it, I guess. That's more about it.
Great. That's really good that you have very boldly said that the ROI cannot be only financial, because I think that has been one of the biggest stumbling blocks is that if I put so much money, how much will I get out of it vis-a-vis I put the same in a CRM platform or an effort, then the field is made responsible that if so much is given to you, this is the kind of returns we expect from you. But you have talked about softer aspects of customer engagement, customer satisfaction as expressed through net promoter score and brand recall and some things like that as being the way to redefine how you are going to do your marketing when you use digital. So thank you very much for those inputs, Ashutosh. And final question is open to all of you. I'll let you go, Gurpinder first, and then Sunil and Saikat can come in. The recent poll that Medicine Man threw up in very interesting results. While response was quite unanimous in saying that it's easier to measure phygital, some of them also thought that metrics to measure online should be the same as offline. So your thoughts, Gurpinder, and then Sunil, and then with Saikat.
Thank you. It took me a while to I literally reread the question a few times when Salil sent it, to make sure that I understood it correctly. So I'm quite surprised by the results of the poll. So definitely there is a need for education, and what you're doing is really, really important. It is definitely not simple to determine phygital outcomes, right? If you implement digital and face-to-face activities with the same group of HCPs, it will be very difficult to determine what is contributing to your business, right? Unlike in US market, where you can attribute output, attribute your input to the output due to the availability of prescription data by HCP. I do not see a measurement framework method that can produce results with absolute certainty in India. Also, in my opinion, having digital channels in your marketing mix should not even be a question in the current digital age. I guess the question should be identifying which channel customers are most comfortable to consume the information shared by the brands. We all know customer journeys are not linear anymore, right? It's more like a maze, constantly changing tools, technologies, and continuously affecting customer habits. So this means the traditional customer journey, the customer journeys that we used to map are no longer useful. How can companies effectively make real-time engagement possible using personalized content is the key. But all of this is only feasible if we are measuring the data points. As Sunil mentioned, are we really investing in data warehouse and mapping customer behavior, bringing all the data together? So in my view, I think the question is definitely the response is very surprising. I believe that data literacy and understanding digital is critical for marketeers.
Great. I fully appreciate what you are saying, that the question is kind of a googly. The answer is even more. They hit the googly for a sixer, by saying it's the same metrics that you can use. So it gives us an indication as to how much of work is needed before we really make pharma to adopt digital in the true sense of the word. Otherwise, it will be just a couple of add-ons. Sunil, your thoughts?
I think what I'll add on into this, and I think very well said by Gurpinder, that it's very, very difficult to measure the success of the campaign, which is phygital. Offline, yes. Only digital, yes. But when it comes to phygital, we really cannot contribute that what we're looking at. I think what the organization look from perspective, the first question is there should be no question that whether digital works and what is the ROI. I think if we go back and let's look at 30 years before, there was no laptops, right? And then we were doing all the engagement business were happening. But now today, anybody asks that what is ROI of a laptop? I think nobody asks, right? We know that how essential these are. And I think digital is going to become like this. So I believe there has to be an integrated strategy when we're reaching out to or reaching out to any HCPs or any target group we reaching out. So how we define that the overall structure of customer engagement can be complemented using digital, and the metrics will remain different for physical. I say for physical and digital as well. But yes, there are certain programs which you can do separately on digital where you can measure the metrics. So if let's take an example that I give an example that we don't cover pedia as much because we are a derma company. And if I want to do a pedia, if I want to do a pedia program to reach out to them, with my field force, not possible, right? So I might go to a THB and say, let's do only a digital program where we reach out to these doctors and then gauge their engagement. And then after the deeper engagement, we'll start having a call with them, video call, right? So then you have a complete separate program which is doing digital and you have a metrics. But when you club together, it's very difficult. But I believe it's not that difficult as well. At the end, what is happening? You both are working towards a single goal, which is that how you increase the top line of prescription share from the doctors. So at the end, when the entire engagement is happening, you are having the data coming from your iPad, data is coming from your emailers, data coming from your website, that how your HCPs are engaging. And you can do a clear differentiation between your HCPs who are engaging with your digital and HCPs not engaging with digital, and see a prescription increase and decrease using IQVIA or maybe some other agency, which give you a clear idea whether the digital actually works for you or not, and even give you a starting filler that whether this ROI is coming. But yes, I agree to Anu. It's not a 1 month or 2 month exercise. You do it and then let's look at what is coming out of it. It's a culture we have to drive, and I think it's take a good amount of time, a year, 2 year, to analyze this entire ISF phenomena and then see that which direction the organization heading to. And I think ultimately it's all bind to the overall objective of the organization, that how they want to drive the entire digital strategy within their organization. So that's from my side.
Great. Just like we don't ask the ROI of laptops anymore. I remember the time that laptops were given according to the hierarchy. If somebody had a desktop on his desk, it meant that he had still not made the grade. So, we are not going to ask for that ROI on digital in a couple of years. That's very heartening. So, Saikat, your thoughts?
No, I think I quite agree with Bhupinder. It's something like when you have a very quick link of input and output KPI, it's very, very easy to measure. But now the question is it possible, impossible tracking digital KPI? I think I'll quickly give you an example that if you see the CLM usage in, through your remote calls are much higher than that your face-to-face calls, right? So, and you can clearly measure it from this. Isn't it a particular KPI that you can really measure through that? Now, every time you cannot really measure it through an output KPI. You cannot really link. And what Ashutosh was talking about, I really, really like that what frequency that you are measuring. Are you setting your milestone for that? Whether your calls airtime is increasing on call by call or not, which could be a good KPIs to measure rather than just putting an output KPI to it and understand what is the ROI coming, right? So it's all additive effect. You do a face-to-face call, then a remote call, followed by a email, right? So your campaign effectiveness will go much higher than that of a complete multi-channel operation where you are bombarding with using all of your different tools, right? So it's omni-channel versus multi-channel approach. So the question is, digital tracking of KPIs can become similar, can become different, but we have to have like a complete methodology of what exactly we'll do with that data. What is the direction? And a lot of time people talk about data accuracy, right? So I always get confused with whether the data accurate or not. But even with a 70% accuracy of the data, this will lead to something which was nothing, right? So earlier days, if you just remember, all this data were available to us, but we just put it in the garbage bag because we never understood the value of the data. Now today, we are actually working on the similar, very small bit of it. That really means that there is a transformation already had happened. And we'll get to learn, like, so slowly we'll get to learn. Now we know what is the physical way of, reaching out to customer. What is the digital way of reaching out to customer? How can we measure a sharp KPI within 5 metrics? What is the sharp KPI that I'm going to do? In what frequency I'm going to do, right? So it can be, and those are all surrogate markers. Like, so lead indicator now are more important than that of, your kind of output metrics that you are looking at. And then if you are developing this capability in the organization, slowly we'll build a complete regression model or marketing mix model. You'll get to see somewhere the data will directionally give you that what you need to do. If you have $100 to spend, where you will spend your money, where will divest, right? So that's the whole outcome and will help Pharma. That's
Great.
how it is.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Saikat. So thank you all so much for having spent your valuable time sharing wonderful insights with us. I'm sure that this discussion will be very useful to pharma people in understanding digital better. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anup. Have a great evening, everybody.
Wish you the same, Anup, Salil, and Preeta. So.